start with, let's identify what actually we mean by robotic process automation. Robotic process automation obviously is part of this larger topic of digitalization, and it needs to be distinguished from other phenomena and other trends such as cognitive automation or artificial intelligence. Why? Because robotics process automation is focused on repetitive tasks, on tasks that where human added value is rather low, and cognitive automation is a phenomenon where the input is not standardized. So for robotics process automation, we have standardized input. For cognitive automation, we have variable input, and for artificial intelligence, we actually have even a higher stage of complexity where the semantics is absolutely unstructured, and the device is able to understand it and to derive necessary conclusions and to make a judgment what to do with this information. So that's the context. And in simple words, robotics is just another word for a software. It's a software which operates autonomously without human input. It's set up, and then it runs certain tasks that actually normally humans do. It interacts with legacy systems. And this is a standard situation for many companies that are present here, and for especially many SMEs. You always have legacies. You have a specific database, you have a specific desktop setup, you have even sometimes a specific enterprise resource planning system like SAP, and then all of a sudden you want to automate certain processes, and then it's important that you do not have to invent the whole thing again and set up the entire thing, but that you can start with what you already have and immediately attack the low-hanging fruits and derive the benefits from the process automation relatively quickly. That's very important. And you see quickly, we mean that we can set up, in the industry, it's possible to set up a proof of concept in 3 to 6 weeks, then to develop a pilot project in 3 to 4 months, and already achieve return on investment within 12 months. So a robot is just a virtual workforce. It is able to work around the clock without interruption and without complaining. It's also sometimes important. And it can be trained by existing business users. This is also a very important aspect. You don't need to enhance your digital capabilities to a next level. You can actually work with the workforce you have. They understand best the processes they are confronted with, and they understand the business needs that are associated with these processes. And they can easily configure the robotic solution in a way that is then efficient for the business. So where can we apply robotics and process automation? Here we see a diagram where we see two entries, the frequency of change and the process value or volume. You see, the larger the volume or the larger the value, the bigger the systems that are necessary to handle this issue. At the same time, frequency of change with these kind of systemic issues is quite low. So this is typically the area where you integrate an enterprise resource planning system, or where you integrate this system with other applications, business applications that are built on top. And then you go down to the alley to processes and to activities performed by humans that are more frequent in change. More frequent, I mean, from several weeks to several months. So it's not about years, it's not about days. Day-to-day judgment, or even judgments that are can vary from hour to hour, are not suitable for robotics, because these require deep understanding and human judgment. At the same time, these intermediary segment of activities is where you can set up the process and set up the system for a duration of about 3 months is ideal for robotics and process automation. What are the key benefits that are associated generally with RPA? First of all, it's saving in human efforts. We all know that we are confronted today with an overload of data. Robotics and process automation helps us reduce complexity by allocating to machines an ever-increasing volume of data that human cannot cope with. And this is the second benefit. This allows human to focus on really high added value activities where we require judgment, require expertise, or require deep industry or business understanding. At the same time, by implementing such a project as RPA integration into an enterprise, the company also acquires skills in agile business transformation. Because you set up some capabilities that allow you to integrate this virtual workforce in the existing workforce, this means that you also acquire a capability of transforming your business in an agile way. In addition, robots generally make less mistakes if they do not make no mistakes. This is important. But they do mistakes, but less. And once they do mistakes, you understand why they do the mistake, you adapt the system, and then they don't do the mistake again. So it's definitely an increase in accuracy and in quality of the output that you derive from RPA. Obviously, speed of delivery. Robots can process a higher volume of data, of activities in shorter time. So definitely an increase in speed. And eventually also in customer satisfaction. Not only customer satisfaction in terms of customers, your clients, but also in terms of internal customers, because the workforce actually feels valued by being able to focus on activities they are qualified for and that are really interesting. Now, when you look at your landscape, your business landscape, your own organizational landscape, where could RPA apply? You have some triggers, like where is the most data? Where are repetitive activities or rule-driven? Which activities are sensitive in content? Sometimes you do not want that a lot of people get access to certain data. So you have a possibility with robotics actually to treat confidential data in a way that ensures compliance. And then you have areas like IT, HR, supply chain, and then you can just look at different processes like order management, demand and supply management, or in the payroll. You all know how much steps it takes in the payroll every month, from the preparation of individual payroll slips to the gross calculation, consolidation at the organizational level. All these things can be done by robots and can be done in an accurate, more efficient, and around-the-clock way. And based on such an analysis, and we have done this in a more general way, you can actually you can design a heat map. Where are the biggest opportunities for RPA? They have different functions. For instance, in the finance function, you have operational accounting, you have general accounting, you have treasury functions, and then you can see what is the potential for RPA in this particular area. Like eliminate human effort, you have big volumes, you have high frequency tasks. To reduce costly errors. In accounting, errors can be quite costly when you have problems in consolidating the accounts, or get more value from your worker. When you're a financial specialist, you don't want to do then the administrative tasks of processing thousands of documents. You all know that in Russian accounting, you have an incredible amount of documents you need to process again and again, and sometimes they go around in circles and come again to the same position. So all these things can be done by robots. And if you look, for instance, at the general accounting, then reconciliations or allocations can present opportunities where all of these 4 benefits of RPA actually are present. And obviously, when you start the journey in RPA, your interest probably is actually to focus on these areas where you have the most benefits concentrated. So this heat map actually gives you some very clear orientation where to start and where the lowest hanging fruits are and where the biggest benefits you can derive in short term. The same is true for human resources. Here, let me just pick one example. When we have the learning and development, for instance. Learning and development, when we onboard in a company and we have all the policies, all the compliance rules, usually it's a pile of document that is given to the new entry, and he has to read it. Generally, he does not read it. She does not read it. People don't like to read this amount of documents, and they just sign it. So, in terms of efficiency, this process is not the most efficient. At the same time, it's hugely important because compliance, you all know, is highly important and it's highly sensitive. It's for enterprise data. It's also for regulatory compliance. It's extremely important. So when you automate this kind of process, when you create an application that trains the workforce, that shows them in a video what is meant by compliance in your company context, and that interacts with them and says, okay, now that we have had this topic, how would you react in that situation? And the employee has to choose an option, and you immediately see, has he understood the content of the compliance rules or not? This is much more efficient in terms of ensuring an efficient onboarding and an efficient training of the employees in terms of policy compliance within the organization. Another good example is the recruitment process. We all are victim to biases. When we see a person, we like the face, or we see it's the same university, the same study field. All kinds of cognitive biases influence our decision and our evaluation of candidatures. So when we look at these documents, our judgments sometimes produce efficient results, sometimes, and data shows this is not always the case, sometimes they produce not the best results. Organizations often hire people which they should not have hired. So an automated onboarding procedure allows you to screen the mass of data that you receive when you receive 150 or 200 applications on a new position, to screen them really for objectively defined criteria, and the system will not be influenced by biases. They will not be influenced by what kind of picture they see. Well, today it's not always in use anymore to send a picture, but still there are a lot of other biases that may enter into the game. And today, an automated system will definitely not fall victim to these. So this is another area where you can see there is a clear benefit. One more important thing to keep in mind is that RPA is not something you buy and then you have it. It's a journey. You start, you engage in it. You start with a proof of concept. The proof of concept is a kind of mini setup within your organization, within one particular function, on one particular activity, and you just try, does it work? When you can make this proof, it works in your organization, then you move to the next step. You set up a capability. You identify additional processes, you scale it to the entire function, you scale it to the entire process, you enlarge the pilot, and in the end you will develop a center of excellence. I will show on the next slide what I mean by center of excellence. We'll develop a center of excellence which has a function-wide scope and which is able of driving this process forward in terms of scaling it to new functions and to new areas. And in the end, you will create within your organization a virtual workforce that works together jointly, and that's the original slide where you have a human hand and an automated hand. Obviously robotics here in this sense is not about the robots, so it's the image is a little bit misleading. Still, the image wants to, on the first slide, wants to show that you have humans and machines and soft working jointly very efficiently. So this is what I mean by center of excellence. It's in the business side. It's not an IT function. It's somebody from the business side who is the owner of this process. You can call it robotics leader, who creates a kind of roadmap or a project log in agile terms. And then you have the people from the robotics center of excellence that interact with the process owners in finance, in HR, in supply management. And you have the robot workforce, which will take over increasingly tasks from different functions that are repetitive, rule-based, high volume and sensitive, and where you have costly errors. So this, I cannot stop my presentation obviously without mentioning once EY. It's not about selling. It's more about telling what is the track record of EY in this field. We see it as a process in a larger sense. It should not be an exclusively IT process. We view it as a project cycle which is embedded in performance improvement, business transformation, which is in risk assurance embedded. And so this is the added value that we can derive and we can give to companies from EY when we do these kind of projects, that we do not just help companies to integrate a new software tool to automate a certain process, but that in the same time we help companies to set up these center of excellence to help create agile business transformation capabilities and to make their business fit for the challenges of the digitalized world. So now you may think this is all good and this sounds very nice, but we are here a club of SMEs and this definitely does not apply to us. Because we have only 10 people in the HR department, and if we automate them, then we have nobody left. So this is a real concern. So it's about scaling, and RPA allows scaling. It does not mean that it's only applicable to big organizations. You can start very small. Even in small organizations, you have processes which are associated with frequent errors, which are associated with costly errors that are highly sensitive, or you have processes that are simply not the most efficient in terms of you have a workforce that could be used more efficiently. Actually, this last point is particularly true for small organizations. Because if you have a finance specialist, you don't want him to do the repetitive task. You want him to do the high added value task. You want him to focus on the real judgmental affairs in accounting and to make the right judgment decisions. And so if you can discharge him of all these routine daily tasks, this is a high benefit, even for a small and medium enterprise. And second, it's not only from the business side applicable to SMEs, but also from the logic. SMEs are always embedded in a web of partnerships. They work with their bank, they usually have a trusted advisor, a consultancy, they have business partners, and all these partners are themselves using these kind of tools. So within this network, they can also use solutions, integrate solutions from partners, from business partners like the banks or the consultancies, and so they're not alone. This is the second message. So really, I think, and I hope I have made this clear, that RPA is a very promising field of activities also for SMEs, and I hope we'll have an interesting discussion afterwards. Thank you so much.